17-year-old Julian. He's been playing varsity basketball since the fifth grade. Julian Newman, they are taking the internet by storm with their incredible dribbling skills.
Julian is already thinking college ball. He said he wants to play for John Calipari and the defending champion Kentucky Wildcats and wants to be like the Clippers' Chris Paul one day.
What's going on, YouTube? This day in the life of a Division I basketball player.
Do you remember when Julian Newman was this close to being the next LeBron? At just 11 years old, he was already being hailed as a future NBA superstar and was literally on track for the Mount Rushmore of basketball. Fast forward over a decade, and guess what? Julian's still nowhere near an NBA roster. All that hype? Gone. His name has faded from the spotlight, like it never even happened. But where did it all go wrong? Did he implode off the court? Or was it something deeper in his game that held him back from ever reaching those crazy expectations? Trust me, the answer will shock you. Stick around till the end, and I'll roast the living daylights out of Julian Newman. Once upon a time, this kid was the most talked about name in high school basketball. Prodigy, a viral sensation, the one who made us all wonder, is this kid the future of the game? But here's the shocking truth. Julian Newman somehow got worse. A player who once dominated the spotlight with his flashy handles and impossible shots is now struggling to make a mark in college basketball. And after nearly a decade of hype, drama, and viral highlights, it's clear Julian Newman's basketball career is crashing in real time. But how do we get here? How did this once promising player go from viral stardom to an afterthought in college sports? Let's dive into the rise, the fall, and everything in between. Trust me, it's a story you won't believe. Now, you might be thinking, how could that even happen? After all, he was a viral sensation for years. He made headlines for his outrageous moves, trash-talking opponents, and constantly playing above his weight class. But somehow, after all that hype, his career has fizzled out, and it's almost painful to watch. So how did Julian go from a high school basketball legend to someone who couldn't even make a dent in the college scene? Why is this kid, once touted as a future NBA star, now scraping the bottom of the barrel? Let's dive into the shocking details and break down exactly how this once promising career turned into a complete disaster. And trust me, this is a ride you're not going to want to miss. Let's rewind the clock to when Julian Newman first burst onto the scene.
Now, I gotta ask you, man, what's it like being 11 years old, but you play on a high school team?
It's a lot of fun. I get to hang out with some of the older kids. The girls love it, and
Boy, I like that,
man. This was a time when social media was becoming a force to be reckoned with in the sports world. Platforms like Instagram, Vine RIP, and YouTube were the perfect stage for young athletes to showcase their talents, and let's be honest, Julian capitalized on that better than anyone. It wasn't just about skills for Julian, it was about showmanship. His flashy ball handling moves, his ability to make highlights look effortless, and his constant presence on social media made him an instant celebrity. People were mesmerized by what he could do with a basketball. And I get it, he was a human highlight reel. But there was more to the story that few people really dug into. He wasn't just playing for any high school team, he was playing for his dad's team, and that, my friends, is where the first red flag appears. Let's think about this for a second. If you're a young kid with immense potential, but you're playing for a team coached by your father, who's also the one giving you all the opportunities, it raises a few eyebrows. Was Julian really that good? Or was his entire basketball career built on nepotism? It's a classic case of being in the right place at the right time. His dad, Jamie Newman, was the mastermind behind it all. He knew how to market his son, how to create a spectacle out of every game, and how to keep Julian at the center of the conversation. But was this really about developing a basketball player? Or was it all about creating a viral sensation? What do you think about this whole dad as coach situation? Is it fair or just good business? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's talk about Julian's stats in high school. 30 points per game. On paper, that sounds incredible, right? But here's the kicker. Most of those 30 points were coming against some of the worst competition imaginable. These weren't powerhouse high schools. These were small, private schools that were nowhere near his level. And let's not forget, Julian was always one of the older kids on the court, often playing against opponents who were younger or less experienced. So yes, Julian's stats were impressive, but let's be real, he wasn't facing the toughest challenges. His game was full of style, flair, flair and high-flying dunks, but was built for Instagram highlights, not real competition. Julian's game was meant for viral clips, not for real basketball battles. What's even more wild is that during this time, Julian's dad was pushing him to keep playing the same flashy style of basketball. Instead of focusing on developing his fundamentals, improving his basketball IQ, or playing in a team-oriented system, Julian was out there just showing off, dribbling around in circles, launching bad shots, and basically treating the game like it was his personal highlight reel. Could this style of play actually hurt his development? Were the fans and media too quick to hype him up without seeing the bigger picture? Think about it. Let me know your thoughts. As Julian's star continued to rise, so did the media coverage. Everyone from Bleacher Report to House of Highlights was covering his games, posting his insane moves, and turning him into a viral sensation. But here's where things get a little messy. Julian didn't just have talent, he had an entire media machine behind him. His father, Jamie, became the mastermind behind the Newman family brand. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. This was about building a business. They launched a clothing line, a reality TV show, and all the while, they kept pushing Julian's face into every corner of the internet. But here's the problem. They didn't have the substance to back it up. While the Ball family, yes, I'm talking about LeVar, Lonzo, and the crew, had actual basketball talent to showcase, the Newmans, not so much. Their reality show, which was essentially a cash grab, only highlighted how far off the mark they were. It was loud, obnoxious, and downright cringeworthy at times. Instead of using the spotlight to genuinely improve Julian's game, it became clear they were more interested in keeping their 15 minutes of fame alive. But, this wasn't just Julian's fault. The basketball world itself was complicit in this entire circus. Coaches, media outlets, and even fans were more than willing to feed into this whole Julian Newman is the next big thing narrative. But as time went on, it became obvious Julian wasn't ready for the NBA, and he wasn't even ready for high-level college basketball. Here's where the story really takes a turn. After years of playing in the spotlight, Julian finally makes it to college basketball. His big moment, right? He's 23 years old and ready to take on the big leagues. Except, he wasn't. Julian's first game as a college freshman was a disaster. 6 minutes on the court, 0 points, 3 missed shots, airballs, the works. And this wasn't just a fluke. This was a pattern. As much as Julian had worked on his game over the years, it was clear that the wrong things had been worked on. All those hours spent perfecting crazy dribble moves that made him look like a YouTube star, had come at the expense of fundamental skills. He could handle the ball, but he couldn't make a shot to save his life. Now, some might argue that it's unfair to judge him so quickly. After all, he's only a freshman, right? But then again, this wasn't just any freshman. This was Julian Newman, the guy who had been hyped up for nearly a decade. And let's talk about the public reaction. Fans were quick to let him know that his time in the spotlight might be over. Bro, just quit basketball. You can't even make a free throw. So, what's next for Julian? Is this the end of his basketball career? Or is there still hope for him? Drop your thoughts below. The Julian Newman story isn't just about basketball. It's also about the dangers of living in the social media age. It's about how viral fame doesn't always translate to real success. In fact, it can be the worst thing to happen to a player's career. Think about it, Julian built his entire identity around going viral. He wasn't playing for his team. He wasn't playing for the love of the game. He was playing for the likes, the comments, the views. And while that worked in the short term, it's clear that those viral moments didn't help him become a better basketball player. The bigger question is, how many other players are in the same boat? Players who can get 1 million views for a crazy dunk or a ridiculous crossover, but struggle to make an impact when the lights are on. Social media is great for building a brand, but it's not enough to build a career. So where does Julian go from here? Is this the end of his basketball journey? Or is there still time for a redemption arc? Right now, it looks like his career is on life support, but we've seen crazier things happen in sports. Some players thrive after being written off, while others never recover. Could Julian reinvent himself and work his way back up? Or will he just be another cautionary tale for young athletes who think social media stardom is all they need? What do you think? Is Julian's story a cautionary tale, or is there still hope for him? Let me know in the comments. The sad reality is that Julian Newman's rise to fame wasn't just about talent. It was about creating an image. He became a brand, a spectacle, a viral meme. But the deeper you dig, the more you realize. Being a basketball player is about more than just highlights. It's about grit. It's about development. It's about understanding the game and honing your craft. For Julian, the lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and everyone was watching. But when it came time to step up and prove himself on a real stage, the spotlight was too hot. Maybe this is the end of Julian's story as a basketball player. Or maybe, just maybe, we're seeing the beginning of a new chapter.